When you take a look at how this NBA season has gone down as a whole, there is a ton to be excited about, and for the most part it has been a resounding success. There's a terrific balance of teams at the top, with a realistic chance to compete for a title. There are a ton of promising young players developing in front of our very eyes, playing a fun brand of basketball, and all of the trades and free agency signings have added even more intrigue and drama to the landscape. With that being said though, it hasn't been all sunshine and rainbows for everybody, which actually brings us to the topic of today's video. I actually made a similar video about this a few months ago, so I won't be including the players that I discussed in that video today, but we will be discussing 4 NBA stars in particular that, for a variety of reasons, have really let down the fans and overall general public this year, and we'll be going over why that is the case for each of them. Before we start though, I want to thank PrizePicks for sponsoring this video. PrizePicks is the perfect service for all of us basketball fans here because when you're involved, it makes watching games every night so much more fun and engaging. Basically, it's an application that provides you with lines on all kinds of individual player props such as points, rebounds, assists, three-pointers made, amongst others, and you simply have to choose whether you believe they will record over the set amount in the line or under the set amount in the line. Make your selections, wager however much you want to, and if your picks hit, you can win some big money. For some picks that I'm looking at making for today's slate of games, I'm thinking of going with Zach LaVine to score over 22.5 points, Klay Thompson to make over 2.5 threes, and DeJounte Murray to grab over 7.5 rebounds. If this sounds at all intriguing to you, then go use the link down in the description of the video to sign up today and use promo code REFERENCE to receive a 100% deposit match bonus up to $100. Once again, thank you to PrizePicks for sponsoring this video. Now let's get back to the topic at hand. The first star we'll be discussing today who has been a pretty big disappointment this season is probably the most obvious selection, being Russell Westbrook of the Los Angeles Lakers. Russ has been a topic of conversation so many times this year that it's basically been run into the ground, so for your sake I'll try to keep this one brief and not harp on the same talking points that everyone discusses when it comes to him and the Lakers. Yes, his fit with the Lakers this year has been proven to be a bit rough, and yes, he individually has performed poorly as an individual, which has contributed to the Lakers' current status in 9th place in the Western Conference standings. But it goes much deeper than that. Russ's playstyle always came with skeptics previously because of how out of control he could get at times, but previously he was still providing elite production in a vacuum and putting up numbers that justify his status as a star in this league, even if he also had glaring weaknesses such as committing too many turnovers and taking some ill-advised shots. Hell, even in what was considered a down year last season with the Wizards, he averaged a triple-double for the year. With the Lakers though, he's not even producing in the box score like that anymore, and when you watch him play, he just looks like a shell of his former self. He used to play so freely and aggressively, which came with its ups and downs, sure, but now it just feels like his confidence is completely gone after all of the negativity that has surrounded his play in the bright lights of the LA spotlight, and it's just kind of sad to watch. As a player who relied heavily on his explosive athleticism to blow by his defender and either finish strong at the rim or make a play for those around him with his passing, the fact that he's now 33 years old and losing that burst is finally catching up to him, and it's gotten worse as the year has gone on. He hasn't scored 20 or more points in a game in over a month. He hasn't dished out double-digit assists in a game in over a month either, and his finishing rate around the basket is flirting with career lows. So overall, the word disappointing fits pretty well for how his season has gone. The next star player that has been a pretty big disappointment this year is Zion Williamson of the New Orleans Pelicans, which brings us into a different set of reasoning for why than we've previously discussed. Right off the bat, let me acknowledge that I know you can't fault someone for getting injured, and simply being injured is absolutely not why his year has been a disappointment to so many. Before the season even started, he reported to training camp and Although nothing is official, reports leaked out that said that Zion came in weighing nearly 330 pounds, vastly out of shape. Even if that number is exaggerated, we could all see that he put on weight from the footage of him practicing at the time. He injured his foot before the year, and a normal recovery time for the injury that he suffered would have him returning to play around the end of November, which was when he was scheduled to return. But he's had setback after setback since then, and he hasn't played a game all year, which has led to some legitimate questions being asked of him by the general public. Has he been taking the rehab process seriously? Did his weight gain factor into the setbacks? Does he even want to play for the Pelicans again? Rumors about him wanting out of New Orleans have circulated for quite some time, and all of this just adds fuel to that fire, especially recently when new Pelican CJ McCollum said in an interview that he hasn't even spoken to Zion since joining the team. So the reason why he's been a disappointment this year is not because of the fact that he's been injured, but it's the fact that he's allowed his situation in New Orleans to become such a circus. Speaking of circuses, the next star player that has had an incredibly disappointing year is Ben Simmons of the Brooklyn Nets. There has been a lot of drama in the Ben Simmons situation over the last year, but ultimately everything happened because Ben failed to take any accountability for his own shortcomings and couldn't handle even a smidge of criticism after having an objectively poor showing in the playoffs. It has been a long time since an NBA player on a long-term contract has held out of a season, and doing it to the degree that he did is going to make those next collective bargaining agreement meetings hell. He has now gotten his wish of finding a new home, now playing for the Brooklyn Nets, and what his move there has exposed is the fact that he more than likely hasn't really been working that hard to stay in shape to be ready throughout the year for when his trade finally came. Ben has been completely healthy all year long, so you would think that once he got his demand and got traded to a new team, he would be ready to start playing shortly after, right? For example, another newly signed Brooklyn Net Goran Dragic hasn't played a game since October, but once he got signed, he managed to get onto the court after a brief ramp-up period and has played each of his last 3 games for them. He was able to do this because he was staying ready and maintained his fitness to get on the court as soon as possible when his time came. The reports are now saying that Simmons has a back strain that came about from his ramp-up process, but had he been working hard throughout the season, that's a little tweak that easily could have been avoided. The Nets are in the play-in realm of the standings and need everyone back as soon as possible to get their season back on track, but with Kyrie Irving still only playing road games and Simmons apparently not coming back until late March now, it's becoming increasingly more difficult to do so, and having not seen Simmons on the court all year is also a pretty disappointing thing in and of itself. And finally, the last star player that has had an all-around disappointing year is Kyrie Irving, also of the Brooklyn Nets. Again, he doesn't necessarily land on this list because of his play on the court, he lands on this list because of the situation surrounding why he's barely been able to be on the court at all this year. I'm not here to say anything about taking the vaccine, I'm here to focus on the fact that him choosing the option that keeps him off of the court for 75% of the season was without question a distraction for the Nets all season long, and it undeniably held the team back because they need him and his elite playmaking and scoring ability to be as competitive as they want to be. Say what you want about how the James Harden tenure with the Nets ended, but Kyrie's unavailability definitely played a role in it, and on top of all of that, we as fans love watching Kyrie play because he's one of the most exciting players in the league just from an entertainment standpoint. Again, the Nets are now in the play-in tournament range, and if Kyrie had been playing all year long, that would not have been the case. So in the end, it feels as though he's letting not only his fans down, but the team as well. And with that being said, that's all I have for you today. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment down below how you feel about the players we discussed today. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.